Hi, good afternoon, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Excuse the slightly disheveled look that I've got going on here. I just decided to jump in, do a live stream. Now, if you tried to join me on Saturday, then you'll know that we had some technical issues with the live streaming software that we use. So today I thought, you know what, I'm just going to jump in, I'm going to have a look. I do hope if you didn't join on Saturday, or if you tried to join or you missed it, that you actually managed to watch the recording I did instead, since we did get the winner.
Good afternoon, welcome. Thank you for joining.
There we go. We managed to find the winner of the Grand National, which was absolutely awesome. And as I say, so today in this short live stream, I'm just jumping in here to talk about something that isn't really spoken about very much. I call it profitable losing. And this is because this is one of the main things that we have to overcome in order to be long-term profitable. So we've got to understand the concept of losing. Now, if you are here, whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook, it doesn't matter. Give me the thumbs up, drop a comment in the box. Just let me know that you're here so that I can see that this is working, that the live stream is actually playing out this time around. And I'm just going to load up everything that we need to go through what I'm about to go through today.
We've got to understand the concept.
Now, I can see everything here now. I think we're all good to go, but do drop me a message just to confirm if you are hearing me okay, if you can see me okay, if everything is kind of going as you would expect it to go. Okay, so what is profitable losing? Okay, so profitable losing is about the fact that we've got to start profitable betting from the perspective of losing and what we're comfortable with. And no one really talks about this. And that's what I want to talk about right now. Losing is what we're going to do most of the time. Doesn't matter whether we're profitable or not. Most of us are going to be losing the majority of our bets. And the reason we're going to be doing that is because if your strike rate is less than 50%, you are going to be losing the majority of your bets. The average strike rate for most selections, most tipsters, most services that you'll see out there is around 30%. And that's for a reason. That's because actually that's kind of roughly how often favorites win. It's sort of become this industry-wide ballpark figure that one should achieve. If you've got a 30% strike rate, you're doing okay because that's what favorites win. So you're doing at least as well as favorites. And that's kind of the thinking behind it. That's the thought process. But actually, if you've got a strike rate of 30%, that means the other 70% of the bets you're losing. So you are actually losing far more often than you're winning. Well, you're actually losing more than twice as often as you're winning. And we don't often stop to think about this concept, think about what it means in terms of bankrolls, in terms of what it means for psychology, for losing streaks, for all of these elements. So when we think about it like that, it changes everything a little bit. Now, the average bettor needs to have a 60% or higher strike rate to be comfortable with losing streaks. Okay, and what do I mean by losing streaks? Let's just have a quick look. Okay, I'm going to bring up my screen here, which you can now see in front of you. Now, actually, before we look at that, I want to show you what I mean by losing streaks. Okay, so here is a chart, and this chart shows us roughly how many expected losers you're going to get in a row based on your strike rate and the number of bets you have. So let's say you have one bet a day on average. That means you're going to be in the 500 bet column. That's the category you're going to be in, because you always want to look at this over a year, at least a year. So you can see with a 30% strike rate, one bet a day, you can expect to hit 17 losers back to back in a row. 17 losers, and that doesn't account for the times when that doesn't account for your downswings, the times when you're going to hit 17 losers back to back, have one winner or two winners, and hit another 15 or 16 or maybe even 17 losers back to back. And obviously this is just an estimate. You could have hit more back to back losers than this. Okay, so when we take this into account, suddenly it changes our picture. And this is actually the point that we should start at. This is the beginning place that we should start at when we start considering what kind of strategy, what kind of approach, what kind of system we actually want to use. We should be starting right here. Okay. And with how many losers are we comfortable with in a row? Now, most people are going to say 17 losers in a row they are not comfortable with. Most people are comfortable with somewhere between 5 to 10 losers in a row. So that starts to put us on this graph at between a 45% and a 70% strike rate, with most people falling kind of around the 60% and 7 back-to-back losers in a row. But also remember, this is based on the number of bets you're likely to have a year. So if you have more than one bet a day, let's say you have 2 bets a day, you're no longer going to be in that 500 bet column. You're now going to be in the 1,000 bet column. And you'll notice the expected number of losers in a row is going to increase. And the reason for this is that the more you bet, the more selections you have, the more chance statistic has of taking effect, and the likelier it becomes you're going to hit a losing sequence of horses that is longer. If you place 1 bet, or 2 bets, let's say you got a comparatively low chance that you're going to hit a sequence of bets. But if you place 2,000 bets, the chance that you're going to hit this longer losing sequence in it becomes significantly higher. So that's why we've got these columns, and that's why we should always be looking at it over the course of a year. And this is why it needs to be our starting point. Now, the one thing that this doesn't account for, of course, is downswings. Okay, so let's just jump back and have a look at what I mean by downswings. Now, this is in Race Advisor Pro. If you're not a Race Advisor Pro member, you'd like to become a Race Advisor Pro member, you can do that at raceadvisor.co.uk/join. If you go over there, you can become a Race Advisor Pro member. Now, I'm going to come into the system builder here, and I've got this strategy down here that I want to show you. And if you're watching this, you're going to get a little bit of an insight into some things, additional things as well. Now, this is just a back strategy. If I open the settings, you can see here, I'm looking at UK race courses. That's it, just general UK race courses back to win. Nothing complicated here. UK race courses back to win. I'm not going into a particular segmentation or anything like that, just keeping it very, very broad for what I was investigating here. Now, you can see these are some of today's selections, but if I shrink them, you can see the system has only got 2 rules. Okay, it's only got 2 rules. I'm looking for Betfair SP less than or equal to 10, and I'm looking for horses that have days since last race of greater or equal to 180 days. So they haven't raced for 180 days or more. That's it. Nothing else, nothing more complicated than that. Now, I don't suggest you go out and bet on these horses, but it is a very solid starting point to begin with. Now, if I scroll down, you can see at the bottom, we've got the stats here. We can see the stats either in the bottom here, or I can hover over the selected rule. You can see the selected rule is in green. This is just a simple flow chart here. So the race node at the top, this is all of the data. So we've got 30,000, nearly 31,000 races in this particular sample, 279 odd thousand, nearly 280,000 horses or selections. And then you can see the strike rate, the race strike rate, the profit loss, Betfair SP, the profit loss at SP, etc. And then once we add that rule in of Betfair SP needs to be less than or equal to 10, we can either follow it down the route of no, I want to follow the horses that don't meet that criteria, don't meet that condition. So the condition is the Betfair SP should be less than or equal to 10, and the this no route here means that I'm going to follow the horses that don't meet the criteria that the odds are less than or equal to 10. But for this example, I just followed the ones that do meet that criteria. They're yes, but I don't want to consider them yet. I'll put in another rating, another piece of information, and here was our day since last ran greater or equal to 180. And again, I can either choose to follow the horses that don't meet that criteria, or I can follow the horses that do meet it. Following the horses that do meet it, I just selected it and chose select, which marks this as horses that I want to find as contenders, selections for this particular system. And when I do that, that stats for that drops in down the bottom here. And this is kind of really handy because down here we can just see what we like. And the reason it comes down here is because in the Race Advisor Pro System Builder, you can actually add, if I wanted to add in another node, we can add as many rules in, and you see we then get both stats popping down here at the bottom. So we can keep building out one strategy in lots of different directions in like a spider flow diagram, and we can just keep soaking up little pockets of profit all over the place. But that's not what we want to look at here. What we want to look at here is these stats. And if I scroll along, first of all, we see average selections, average races a month. But most importantly, we have here largest estimated drawdown. So on this strategy, we've got a drawdown, largest drawdown between 2018 2021, the current day, of around 93 units. This is the drawdown. Now, the largest expected losing streak is actually 35, which is understandable because the strike rate over here is only just over 22%. Okay, and we've got a lot of selections here. So the largest expected losing streak is 35. So the first question you got to ask yourself is, am I comfortable losing 35 bets back to back? Will I still be able to place another bet on a horse from this approach, having placed 34 bets, every single one lost? That's the first question you have to ask yourself before you use any approach. If the answer to that question is no, this strategy, this approach is not going to work for you, you have to either refine it if it's your own, or look for something different if it's someone else's, or if you know the rules to it and it's someone else's, refine it yourself. But this is the first question to ask yourself always. Am I comfortable losing this many bets back to back? If the answer is no, you need to do some work on the strategy or move on. Now, if the answer is yes, the next thing to look at is the largest estimated drawdown, in this case, minus 93 units. And remember, this is just the largest estimated drawdown. It could be bigger. Okay, this is just to give you some guidelines as to what to expect. But it could be bigger, but you should expect at least minus 93 units. Now, minus 93 units, that question is then what we say is, are we able to cope? Are we comfortable coping with a drawdown of 93 units? So from the highest point of our bankroll, we could have drawn down, we could have dropped at least 93 units. Are we comfortable with that? The answer is no. We've either got to do some work on the strategy or we've got to move on. But we combine that with the number of selections here, assuming we are betting one selection a race. But actually what's more important is the average selections in a month. We have roughly 199 selections in a month. We can lose, or we can expect to lose, or have a drawdown of at least 93 units. Okay, so that means realistically we could say that's about 2 weeks, but that's assuming every single bet loses. Now it's not going to, because we know the longest expected losing streak is about 35. But what this means is we've had a bit of an up and then some losers, and a bit of an up and some losers, but the ups have not met the losers. How long does this go on for? Well, the way to answer this question is to export the racing data. And I've already done that. I've exported the racing data. Let me just show it to you here. And that's got all the selections in. So we export the racing data here, and I've just dropped it into a spreadsheet. The reason why is because I want to show you a graph. And here is that graph. Now, this results in about 3 years of data. Now, so roughly if we split this graph into thirds, you've got 3 years of data. Now, the reason this is so important is you'll see this high point here. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor or not, but up here, roughly around here, is the highest point so far. Now, notice, since this point, we have had all of this part of the graph to the right, and it has still not yet quite come back to that highest point. And if you look at the graph being 3 years and we split this into thirds, you can see that actually this particular downswing has lasted most of a year for this particular approach. Now, there aren't many rules in this strategy. This is just to give the example. This is just to visually represent what I mean here when I say this. Okay. but this downswing has represented roughly 10 months, probably just under a year so far. And it's still not yet reached that high point that it was. Now, when you start using a strategy, it's obviously key to how you're going to experience this, because if you joined kind of maybe 8 months ago or something, you started using this strategy maybe 8 months ago and you joined at a low point here, well, you'd be thinking, this is great. It's been 8 months. I've done really well. But if you joined sort of just 3 or 4 months earlier, you'd have gone up this really fast peak and you'd have been like, this is awesome. I'm doing really well. And then it would have dropped off and then you would not have been in profit again. You'd have not reached a new high point in your bankroll for nearly 10 months. This is critical. This is absolutely critical to your long-term success. The question now is would you be comfortable with that? Now, for most people over this particular example, the answer is going to be no. Okay? Most people are not going to be comfortable having basically been in a downswing for 10 months of the year. Now, as you can see, historically, this is likely to go up and improve and continue. But we do get these long flat bits. And you can see it time and again. Here's another one down in the first month. You can see we've got maybe not quite as long, but about 3 months down here. This one has been a bit longer. It's been a bit bouncier up and down. But this question is absolutely critical to ask yourself before you start using any sort of strategy or approach. Now, coming back over here, we can see then that this 93 drawdown unit lasts roughly 3 months, okay, between the previous high point, 10 months between the previous high point and the newest high point. So now we know that the largest expected losing streak is 35 horses with these basic rules, 35 horses back to back. Can you cope with that? If the answer is yes, and the next thing we check is the largest estimated drawdown. How much in terms of units can we expect the drawdown to be? And in terms of units, it's about 93. Okay, if you say, yes, I am comfortable with that, the next thing to check is what is the duration of that drawdown? Am I comfortable lasting and continuing to place bets through the duration of that drawdown? The answer has to be yes to all 3 of these questions for a strategy to have any chance of working for you long term. And this is why this is the best place to start. This is why we want to begin at the point of profitable losing. We have to learn to understand how to lose and how comfortable we are with loss before we have any chance of making a profit. Otherwise, we will be jumping into strategies where they hit a downswing or a losing streak, and we'll jump out of them before that losing streak has ended, before that downswing has ended, without any real understanding or any real expectation of how long it's likely to last. We have to get that expectation first, and we have to ask the 3 questions first. Am I comfortable with the largest expected losing streak? Am I comfortable with the largest expected drawdown? Am I comfortable with the duration of time that the drawdown is likely to last? Only if you can answer yes to all 3 of those questions should you actually then go on and start to use the strategy or consider it. If not, you need to do more work on that strategy. Okay, and as you can see, this particular strategy, it's only got 2 very, very basic rules: odds less than 10, day since last run more or equal to 180. That's it. Very, very simple rules. But there is a small advantage there, a 5% advantage. And actually, it wouldn't take very much to push this higher and to increase that strike rate, to reduce the volume of selections, and to actually increase that strike rate and reduce the downswing time and the expected losing streaks. Okay, so that was what I wanted to jump in and talk about, profitable losing. I appreciate this was completely unannounced, so thank you so much for joining me. If you've managed to join me today, the video will be here on the blog, so if you join me and you missed a bit of it, it's okay. As soon as we finish this, it's going to wrap up and you're going to be able to actually, you're going to be able to see it again, you're going to be able to look at it again. So there's absolutely no problems there whatsoever. One of the reasons for doing this unannounced was because the streaming technology over the weekend, the platform we use to stream, didn't work, it broke down, and I just wanted to make sure that it was back up and running. And I thought, what better way to do that than to actually do a quick unannounced live stream, give you a bit of information about the point that we should be starting at when we start looking at a strategy to use. So any questions, please just leave a comment. Thank you very much for joining. Have a wonderful day, and I'll look forward to seeing you very